Hello, everybody. I am back for the final run of Coin-Op Classic, and to finish it off, we will be doing the arcade version of Gradius 3. I did this game for Shemuptember back in 2021, but back then I was on the PS2 port of the game, which is more of a source port of the game, which is slightly different from the actual arcade version, but now we're playing the true arcade version emulated in Gradius Origins. And let's just go ahead and dive right on in, but before I do get started, I do want to let it be known for anybody who is not familiar with this game, that this is one of the most marathon unsafe games in the entire Gradius series. There are a lot of things that can and probably will go wrong, so we're just gonna have to hope for the best here. But with that, let's get started. So we'll be playing with the regular mode, and Gradius 3 does introduce the weapon edit mode, which kind of gives you a wide variety of different new weapons to customize your power meter with, but I'm going to be using Type B. And if you're looking for a convenient weapon set to get you through the game as a lesser experienced player, Type B is the way to go because the spread bomb is overpowered as heck. And in this game, you can actually fire 2 missiles at a time, unlike other Gradius games. So how do I describe this game? I like to compare the arcade version of Gradius 3 to Crash Twinsanity, in that it's a very clearly ambitious game. It has a lot of really cool ideas and really good graphic and sound design, but the game also suffers from being incredibly rushed and arguably unfinished. It's missing quite a bit of polish in several aspects of its design, and just in general, there's a lot of jankiness to this game. And that's what kind of contributes to that's what mainly contributes to its difficulty. I don't think the game in principle is, like, impossibly difficult as it has the reputation for getting, but there's a lot you need to know about this game before you can even think about attempting to 1cc it, or even just beat it in general. It's a very all-over-the-place game, but I do kind of have a soft spot for it myself, just because this is arguably the one game in the series that I have put the most time into, just because I wanted to understand it. Anyway, so first stage is the desert level. It's one of the easier stages in the game. Nice way to kind of get things started. And now we'll be fighting the first boss, Goliath, who is this giant pincher thing. The tricky thing to look for here is the sand ball, because it doesn't always split in the same pattern every single time. I gotta pay close attention once it gets closer to the left side of the screen here. And that's stage 1 of 10 down. So Gradius 3 is one of the longer games in the series, with 10 stages, though the actual length of a loop can vary by quite a bit, mostly based on one stage in particular, which we'll see near the very end of the game. So yeah, Type B has the weird weapon combination because it has the spread bomb, but then it has the tail gun and ripple laser that you would normally see associated with the two-way missile. But that's actually not a bad thing, because a spread bomb and ripple is extremely broken combination when it comes to power, because the ripple laser's hitbox actually doesn't snag in this game like it does in some other Gradius games, and it actually does a pretty decent amount of damage. So stage 2 is, of course, the bubble stage. This is a pretty easy early run ender, because there's a lot of bubbles, and if you use the strategies I use, where I farm from these patches, then it's then you can, as you can already see, the screen is already getting flooded with quite a bit of bullets. So it can easily get overwhelming. But the bubble stage also introduces us to another major aspect of Gradius 3, which is its slowdown. While many of the arcade Gradius entries, and especially the console entries, have their fair share of slowdown, Gradius 3 Arcade is particularly notable because the slowdown actually kind of factors into your strategy for the game. And thankfully Gradius Origins does a really good job of emulating it. Certain other emulators like MAME don't really do the best job with it. And some of the early home console compilation releases actually gave me the option to patch it out entirely, but which definitely makes the game a far different experience. But again, M2 did a pretty good job with replicating the original arcade experience as much as possible for Gradius Origins. Another thing that Gradius 3 Arcade is particularly infamous for is its really, really bad hit detection. Bad hitboxes are not necessarily new to the Gradius series, but Gradius 3 Arcade is especially notorious for them because it has some of the most extreme examples of just really, really terrible collision detection. Again, this game is very much missing a bunch of polish. And there's also quite a bit of unused content for it. If you look at this game's page on the cutting room floor, you can see that what we got was only about, like, maybe 75% of what they actually had planned for this game. And then, of course, there's also the AM Show demo build that was recently added to Gradius Collections. But yeah. I think this game definitely still has some highlights, though, and I'll try to point them out as we go out. For one thing, the sound design is amazing. Most of the entire soundtrack in this game is just unbelievably good. Aside from this song, this is one of my least favorites, personally. And it does have some cool ideas. Alright. Gotta be really careful here. And I'm not actually going to be playing with any of the gadgets that Gradius Origin supplies you with, just because I prefer to play without them. So that stage went okay, I guess. Here is a Bubble Eye. This boss kind of speaks for itself. They kind of nerfed this boss a little bit on the SNES version because every single shot you do to it actually pushes it back, so if you have like a laser, then you can pretty much just force it to stay on the right side of the screen, but on the arcade version, it actually kind of moves around a lot. Okay, good thing I made it through that stage. That stage is kind of scary. So I'm also going to be using the Force Field, which is just without a doubt the best shield in the game. Because in this game it actually takes 6 hits, whereas in most other Gradius games it only takes 3. And those extra 3 hits really make a difference. Like, the Force Field is already pretty good as it is, but in this game, there's no other shield that can compete with it. And unlike the AM Show version, they actually fixed its hitbox so it doesn't snag on literally everything. Stage 3 is the classic Gradius Volcano stage that nearly every single game has, and again, I'm going to be kind of farming from hatches here. Extra lives are very, very important in this game. There's one stage in particular where having a bunch of extra lives can be really, really beneficial, so I want to try to stock up on as many of them as I can. Gradius 3 Arcade doesn't really have any, like, big score farming strategies. Like, there's no bosses you can really milk from, so getting a good score really kind of revolves around just shooting everything you can. So the music just changed. There was a specific enemy at the bottom of the screen that I took out with the Mega Crash, and that caused the background music to change. This is actually a medley of songs from earlier Gradius games in the series. The Mega Crash, by the way, so Gradius 3 has a 7th weapon slot, which is the exclamation mark. In Type Select, that defaults to the Mega Crash, which acts as a replacement for the blue capsules. It just wipes out all enemies on screen. So I'll be using that a few times. So that previous song in the medley was Free Fly, or the Stage 4 theme from Gradius. This is Fly High, which is the Stage 2 theme from the original Salamander, and it'll be followed up by Burning Heat, which is Gradius 2's first stage music. So I guess in this section there's supposed to be an earthquake, hence why the screen is shaking so much, and why there's also stuff that falls from the screen. On higher loops, more of the volcanoes actually spit out rocks, but on loop 1, only a couple of them do. But there's actually quite a bit more to this volcano stage, because now we take a big trip underground. Stage 3 is a pretty long stage, probably because this game, at least the Japanese version, actually offers a beginner mode, which has reduced rank and ends after Stage 3, so I guess to kind of make beginner mode have a bit of more of a dynamic ending, they made it a longer stage. So this is the underground portion. It starts off with this really, really big maze, or the volcano section, but you don't want to go through the volcano section. So my goal here is to try to get as many hatches as possible and also not die. Each hatch is worth 300 points, so it definitely adds up if you can get a lot of them. Although not all of them spawn for random reasons. Okay, I'm actually going to replenish my force field here.
Force field.
I would have tried to go for a Mega Crash there instead, but my force field was kind of low, so I decided to replenish it instead. The key to being good at Gradius 3 Arcade is understanding Gradius 3 Arcade. Like, you really need to know the ins and outs of this game to stand a chance. That's true for just about any Gradius game in the series, but especially this one. Like, I truly do believe that this game can be as consistent as any other game in the series, but it definitely requires a lot more work than some of the other ones. I just used that Mega Crash for the heck of it. Power-up capsules actually do give score in this game, so picking up a few more of them can actually boost your score by a little bit. Luckily, this game's extend system is fairly generous compared to some other titles like Gradius 4. And the tail gun is very useful here because it gives me the ability to hit some of the stuff from behind me that I would otherwise have a hard time with. The one downside of Type B is that it does not have really any upwards firing ability. Not that many sections of this game really need it, but it does require a bit more creativity with your options, for instance. This section is a bit annoying because each of these jumpers fires sunbursts of 16 bullets, which can definitely get overwhelming at times. And there are a lot of them, and they come from behind.
Laser.
And now I'm going to be switching back to the Ripple Laser because now we have this dirt section. You cannot destroy the rocks, but they will fall down if the dirt underneath them is dug out. So you have to be really, really careful with them, and they can also get stuck on like a single pixel of dirt. And they can just kind of drop on your head out of nowhere, and when you're recovering in this section, sometimes random enemies just spawn out of nowhere. And they often spawn right on top of you and kill you. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this rock to fall down. Yeah, I don't think so. So that means that hatch up there is gonna get to live, but when there's a lot of activity going on screen, usually hatches don't spit out that many enemies, so it's not a huge deal. And I have my force field, so it's not a big deal anyways. By the way, interestingly, the force field actually shrinks incorrectly in the arcade version of this game. Or at least the sprite does. It actually goes from the largest size to the smallest, and then the second, and then the middle size. Gradius Origins does give you the option to patch that. You get used to it pretty quickly, but it is another thing you kind of need to know ahead of time so you don't get thrown off. Alright. And then we're still not quite at the boss yet because we have a homage to Stage 4 from Gradius 1, the return of the Iron Maidens, although I think they're named differently in this game, but I can't remember what their name actually is. And I'm going to be farming from 2 hatches at once here using this pseudo-safe spot. So I want to have the tail gun highlighted by the end of that section, so that way I can activate it and move to the front of the screen, because I'm going to try to set up for a quick kill on this boss. This boss is a new evolution of Big Core, the Big Core Mark III. Trying to fight this thing the intended way is really, really hard, but if you get your options positioned like this, you can actually take out the back core first. And if you can do that, then it really trivializes the fight. No, I got it, okay. I wasn't sure if I would get the back core in time. Okay. If you don't get that strategy, you basically just have to time it out. And then this stage is interesting. So this is a pseudo 3D high-speed stage. There's no enemies and there's no boss. There's just a bunch of power-up capsules. It's one of the easier stages in the game as well, but you do need to be ready for the turns. And when the split path shows up, it doesn't actually matter which path you take. And grabbing power capsules in this stage actually doesn't give you points, so it doesn't matter how many I grab. Okay. So, now we're off to Stage 5, which is this game's Moai stage. And Gradius 3 Arcade probably has, in my opinion, the worst Moai stage in the series. Because for some reason, the Moais in this game are just really, really bad. Also, there's an option hunter, but you can use your Mega Crash to destroy it. And get your options back. Option hunters in this game can actually show up if you have fewer than 4 options, but the timer is longer the fewer options you have. So, the reason why this Moai stage sucks is because the Moais fire an incessant amount of rings, unless the rank is, like, really, really low, which it never is at this point in the game. And the rings, something about them, I don't know how to describe it, they're not as easy to poke holes through as they are in other installments, and the hit detection on the Moai's mouths makes them nearly impossible to do damage to without splash damage. But probably the worst part of this stage is that this stage, I think, is the perfect example of Gradius 3 Arcade's biggest weakness, which is its abominable checkpoint system. Gradius 3 Arcade is definitely the worst case of Gradius Syndrome. There are very, very few places in this game where you can die and have a reasonable shot at recovery, and most of them are in the very end of the game. And this stage is the absolute worst offender. If you die anywhere in this stage, you're not gonna recover. It's just, it doesn't happen. There's too many Moais, and it relies too much on being at full power. You really need, and like, this is the stage where Type B is really beneficial. You really need that splash damage from the spread bombs in order to stand any chance against the Moais. It also helps to have a double type here, such as the tail gun. Use a Mega Crush there, and I need to be careful with how I grab these two power-up capsules. In the arcade version, if you grab 2 or more power-up capsules at about the same time, it only counts as 1 on its advancement on the power-up meter. And Gradius Origins, again, does give you the option to patch this, but I am playing with this with no bug patches whatsoever. So we get the true, authentic experience here. And here we have totem-wise that go away once you destroy all 4 heads on them. But for some reason on the arcade version, as they get closer to the left side of the screen, they actually slow down the rotation unless the game is lagging. I don't really understand that. It's got it. Maybe there's some like frame rate thing that's going on here. Okay, this is not good. Okay. I would have liked to have destroyed more of those, but I guess it's not a huge deal. And then this stage actually has 2 bosses. Also, even once the vertical scrolling stops, you can still wrap from the top to the bottom. It's kind of funny. This first boss is Dogus. It's pretty self-explanatory, but absolutely, these bosses you just cannot recover against unless you're just amazingly skilled at this game. You need to be on a whole other level. So I really, really, really don't want to die here. Or else I'll basically be forced to use the rewind function. And as if that wasn't bad enough, this boss is even worse. You literally cannot legitimately kill this boss with certain weapon types. This is Vath, or Vaith, I don't remember how to pronounce it. And you need to do this in a very specific way. And I've already messed it up. Okay. Okay, I made it work. This is the fight you do not want to have this fight go south. Those inflating moais have really, really big hitboxes. Like, you cannot get anywhere near them. Like, and this top head is barely defeatable with this weapon type I'm using. You basically need to have, like, pixel-perfect positioning. And I am not able to get that right now, for some reason. Oh, I think I got it. There we go. Alright. That is a very terrifying stage. So, there's a way, yeah, there is a way to glitch Dogus into never attacking you and just spinning in circles. But you don't really see that unless it's a recovery attempt. This game has a lot of really weird bugs like that. Alright, so now it's time for the cell stage. The cell stage is a nice little reduction in difficulty. It also marks the return of the tentacle golems, which were the only thing present in Stage 5 of Gradius 1. But also this stage is very clearly just a big giant love letter to Salamander. As we can tell by the graphic design, and some enemies are literally just sprites directly ripped from Salamander. And then here I can actually just sit in this position and not move for the entirety of this corridor. But unfortunately, the cell stage doesn't reintroduce another really annoying aspect that became a staple of the series, the regenerating walls. Pro tip for these regenerating walls, wait for them to fully regrow before attempting to go through them. Otherwise, they will most likely kill you. So, I'm gonna wait here. Also, another interesting tidbit, you actually can't go all the way to the right side of the screen. This is as far right as you can go. And that can actually be a problem in certain cases.
Destroy the eye.
So this boss is Grey Ghoul. It's sort of like a second coming of Brain Golem. It's a little weird. It also fires a lot of bullets, so it really helps to have a full force field in stock here. And I think the higher the rank, the more health this boss actually takes, but I'm playing on normal difficulty. In fact, I'm playing with all... I forgot to show my settings before the start of this run, but I'm playing on all default settings. Alright. I need to remember I only have one hit left on my force field when I go to recharge it. Okay, so now we go back to another one of the hardest stages in the game. This stage got ridiculously nerfed on the SNES port.
Force field.
This is the fire stage, and I'm probably just gonna shut up for most of this stage, because this stage requires absolute concentration. Because, yeah, the smallest fireballs cannot be destroyed, unlike the SNES port, and there are way more of them. So the strategy here is just lag the game as much as possible and take whatever openings you can find. And just hope you don't accidentally get pinned. And that's literally the only gimmick this stage has. That was a little closer than I would have liked. This ending section is just terrifying on a whole other level. I kind of just have to hope I can get lucky here. And that I don't get walled off by an impossible pattern of fireballs. They do have consistent... The fireball patterns are consistent, but when they and how they split is subject to variation. I am amazed that that did not shave off my force field. Okay, that went alright. And I can get a Mega Crash, so I can show off something cool here. So there are two bosses in this stage, and they both suck. Wyvern, thankfully it wasn't too hard this time around. And Vulture Dragon, you can actually do this if you have a Mega Crash. But on the arcade version, the game actually fails to pick up on the fact that you've killed this boss, so now I just have to wait for it to time out. So we just kind of have to sit here and wait. So how's everybody doing? Okay, there we go. So, very nice to get through that stage. That's a very terrifying stage to go through, especially in a marathon setting. thankfully the next stage was also a very nice needed break. So this is the plant stage, and I guess they originally intended for the stage to be much earlier in the game, because in the AM show build, this was actually stage 3. But I guess they just decided to move it later, and as a result, it makes the difficulty spike kind of awkward, because it just randomly goes back down for this level. There's not too many threatening things in this stage. Also, you can make this plant arm despawn by just doing that. Why does that work? I don't know. There's supposed to be a bunch of gray moss that spawns throughout this stage, but for some reason it just doesn't when you have full power. Again, that's another bug that they give you the option to patch. And these plant arms don't actually kill you on contact, rather they just try to drag you into the ground. And the SNES version, they just kill you on contact. Okay, so the stage itself isn't too hard, but the boss of the stage is super easy if you have full power, but basically impossible to kill if you're anything below full power. This is Choking Weed. You do not want to have to recover against this thing. Alright. I would normally like to have a bit more of a reserved force field for this fight. It does try to suck you in, so you do have to hold back against it. Okay. We're good. Okay, so now it's time for everybody's favorite level, the Crystal Stage. And this stage apparently went through a lot of different ideas in development, because I guess originally they envisioned it being a high-speed stage where the path is formed by random debris that comes flying, and then the AM show version, that's kind of what the stage is, but they took out the high-speed aspect of it. But then it just kind of got warped into this Tetris-like Crystal Stage. And it features one of the most infamous portions of the entire Gradius series. So this is the stage that can really make the length of a one loop clear of this game vary by quite a lot. Because this will take anywhere from one try to we'll be here all night. Hopefully it goes decently well. For one thing, this stage only has it has no checkpoint, so if you die anywhere, you go all the way back to the beginning of the stage. Which is like 2 minutes, and it takes like 2 minutes. It's like a 2-minute recovery every single time. Okay, but now we're coming up on the part that makes this stage extremely hated. So this is the cube rush. There's 100 cubes that come flying at you from the right side of the screen, and Konami wanted you to have to dodge all these cubes individually, but that's stupid. So I'm going to try to bait them out by building a wall in the lower left-hand corner. The problem is there's a bunch of different patterns that the cube rush has, and it's random, and it's all determined by RNG. Okay, yeah. So the reason why I left my post there was because some of those cubes try to charge you from behind, and if I had stayed there, there is a very good chance that one of those cubes would have just flown back and hit me. So in those cases, it's better to just try to abandon your post. So that's what the cube rush is really just a nuisance, because you can die to it through no fault of your own. and a lot of times there's really nothing you can do about it. It's not uncommon to, like, you can kind of make the cube rush consistent if you've spent a lot of time with it, but otherwise it is not uncommon to blow like 10 lives to this stage, and none of it is your fault. Also, this third type, there's actually multiple option hunter types in this game, and this type really sucks, especially trying to dodge it in that tight space. The second type, which you saw in stage 7, can actually be destroyed after it takes your options. By the way, for these cannons that come in cubes, you get extra points for destroying them while they're still in the cubes. Not sure what to expect here. Oh, okay, that cube absolutely should have come back and hit me, but it didn't. And this, yeah. So you need a bunch of space in front of you in order to survive at the very end. But I got kind of unlucky there. And so, if I had let that go until the very end of the cube rush, I would have died. So I had to kill myself there just so I could start over. So yeah, we could be here for a little while. And that's why I gave us an hour and 5-minute estimate. Because there's really no telling how this stage will go in any given run.
Multiple.
Nice lag spike. So, yeah, I'm probably not going to have too much to say as we go through this stage, depending on how long it takes. Hopefully it doesn't take too many attempts. But like I said, we could be here all night. And if it gets bad enough, then, like, if I get down to my last life, then I will have to use rewind, probably. Because the arcade version of Gradius 3 does not have continues. That's the scary part. It's not over yet. We're past, like, the first major hurdle, but there's still plenty of ways in which this could go south. Ah! I reacted poorly to that. I had that. Yeah, so while there is a luck barrier to the cube rush, there's still a big portion of it is still, there's a big onus that's still on the player to survive. Like, you still have to know what you're doing. There's a layer of execution to it, and you can fumble it like I just did there. Okay, I'm gonna have to, since I missed a power-up capsule there, I'm gonna have to play this with only one option. Thankfully, I determined in practice that that's actually not an issue. And knowing my luck, this is going to be the attempt that gets past the cube rush. It does delay the option hunter a little bit, which kind of helps. But it's not really a strategy you want to rely upon. The reason why I'm not activating my second option, by the way, is because I really want to have that spare speed up for if I die and have to attempt another recovery. Alright, here's that option hunter. That's the type 2 option hunter, by the way. You can actually destroy that option hunter after it takes your options and get them back. Alright. Third time's the charm, right? Actually, no, wait, I think this is 4th try. And I think... I thought that was one of the better patterns, but it actually wasn't. That... Cube number 12 is known as the Omni Cube, because it's one of the first cubes that rushes you from behind, and it's usually the cube that will kill you. Because it's very early on, and you usually haven't had enough time to build a good wall by that point.
Missile. Multiple.
Uh-oh. That option hunter probably would have taken my options anyways, so... I would have been screwed no matter what.
Multiple. Speed up. Missile.
So remember how I said this game is not marathon safe? Yeah, this is one of the big reasons why.
Multiple.
By the way, it is important that you actually destroy these cannons before the cube rush, because if you don't, they will attempt to fire at you from behind. Like, even those cannons can still reach you. Oh my gosh, I'm so dumb. That was a good pattern, and I screwed it up. It's really important to hug the wall in front of you, so that way the cubes are less likely to snipe you. But you have to be careful about it, and I was not there.
Missile. Multiple.
If I hadn't made that dumb mistake, I probably could have survived that. Again, I'm really sorry about this. I know this is probably super annoying to watch. Okay, how did I not die there? Hitboxes in this game are bad, but in some cases they are a bit more forgiving. Like, your ship's hitbox is actually relatively small. But yeah, I absolutely should have died there. Okay. And this is literally the worst pattern. Watch this be the one where I survive. Nope. Yeah, when you get the cubes that start on the bottom row, that pattern is very difficult to actually use effectively.
Speed up.
I am really struggling here.
Speed up.
Getting all of the power-ups from this pre-stage sections can also be very difficult.
Multiple. Speed up.
But yeah, if this keeps going the way it's going, it's very likely that I will have to use rewind. Ugh. Missing that one enemy really hurts. And of course, now I have to deal with the worst option hunter at a really bad time.
Speed up.
If I get down to my last life, I will definitely just use rewind, because this is bad. A lot of these deaths have been my fault, too.
Speed up. Missile.
Again, I keep missing those. I have maybe 2 more shots at this if I can reach the next threshold for an extra life, which is in like 9,000 points. But I don't think I'll be reaching that threshold on this attempt. Please just let me get past this. This has been really annoying. That's not good. It's okay.
Speed up. Speed up.
There we go. So now I have 2 more shots.
Multiple. Speed up.
And I keep missing stuff.
Missile.
I will probably have to use rewind.
Speed up.
Which sucks, because that will make me this isn't a legitimate 1cc. Unless I pull off a miracle and make it on my last life. And knowing the Gradius series, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Missile. Multiple.
Alright, one more chance to do this legitimately.
Speed up.
Ah, that sucks. That's disappointing. Yeah, that just needed to go slightly differently and I would have survived. Man, that's what this stage does to you sometimes, and there's very little you can do about it. I probably should have used rewind way earlier when it was an execution mistake and not a luck mistake. I'm sorry, I really wanted this to be a successful 1cc, but... At least I'll have a high score, but that won't mean anything because it won't be able to go into the rankings. I guess I'll have to do a redemption run of this at some point. We still have, we just spent 20 minutes on that stage, couldn't even clear it legitimately, and we still have one stage to go, and I think it's the longest stage in the game. So we are most likely going over estimate with this one.
Multiple.
So the final stage is a really long stage. It starts off with a boss rush. First we have Tetran, who just behaves exactly like it does in Gradius 2. I cannot believe that just fucking happened. Sorry, I slipped there. I'm a little annoyed. That should not have happened. This boss rush is supposed to be really easy. If you have as much power as I do. And then the rest of the bosses are just all from Gradius 2. I'll finish this out, even though it's probably gonna go way over estimate. And if I have to... And I'll just use rewind if I ever die anywhere, just so I don't have to do any more recoveries. Not like I'd be able to anyway with my life count being this low. I will be getting an extra life soon, but again, that's not really going to matter at this point. So I guess one of the Linger Core's barriers is actually rendered off screen for some reason. Again, this is another bug that you can patch in this game. And I guess also its wing animation is somewhat glitched out, but I don't know how that is. Alright. So now we have the obligatory base stage, and the boss rush checkpoint actually extends quite a bit into the base, and of course the boss rush is all on one checkpoint. So you basically can't really afford to die for like the first minute of this base, or else you go all the way back to the start of the boss rush.
Double.
This base stage is kind of just one really, really long gauntlet. They really kind of throw everything they thought of at you. Yeah, the checkpoint, I think, is when the orange subs start appearing.
Force field.
I really, really hate these next two sections. These two sections are very stressful in an actual 1cc attempt, and also, they are perfect examples of checkpoints that are technically recoverable, but the recoveries suck. So, you really just don't want to die here. But if I do die, I'm just going to use rewind at this point, because I've already wasted enough time. That maneuver is way harder than it looks. Like, it looks stupid, it's even stupider than you think it is. And then we have the wonderful spin lasers, which are not affected by lag for some stupid reason. So you actually have to deliberately keep the game running at full speed to not mess up their cycles. So that was programmed on purpose? That seems really, really dumb. I see this game shares a lot of ideas with MSX Parodius, where it seemed good on paper, but in execution it wasn't all that great. So here's Disrupt, the obligatory gun wall. Then we have Shadow Gear, the giant, indestructible, formidable obstacle. And since I'm playing an emulation of the arcade version, I can actually show off this funny route through here, provided I don't get the bad pattern. And I don't believe I did. So you can kind of do this. So on certain patterns, or on certain phases of this encounter, all 4 of the hitboxes on Shadow Gear's legs move, even though visually only 2 of them do. And so that allows you to just kind of pass through the tips like that. So that kind of allows you to do that funky little route. And now we have the most agonizingly slow final checkpoint in existence with these meatballs that have awful hitboxes and regenerating walls. Luckily, I did actually find a somewhat consistent way to get through here. And I think I messed it up. No, we're good. That last maneuver is very, very crucial to getting this strat to work. And then this is the final boss, Bacterian, which does actually attack you in this game, but the attack doesn't even kill you, it just sends you to bonus stages. But I'm not going to be showing those in this run because I'm already going to be overestimate as it is. And it takes away all your power-ups. So can someone explain to me why Bacterians are the result of mankind's greediness? That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Also high-speed escape. And there we go. Unfortunately, I was not able to do that legitimately. I guess that'll just have to wait until another time. But that's the game. Darn Crystal Stage RNG. Although a lot of those deaths, again, were my fault. And I guess that's the end of the marathon. I don't really have any other closing statements, so we'll just kind of, I guess I'll just kind of let the credits play out. And I won't really bother showing off Loop 2 because they do make a couple of changes to Loop 2. They changed some geometry in Stage 1 and added a bunch of enemies in Stages 1 and 3 to the point where in Stage 1 you basically have to be at full power the entire time or else there's no way you're making it through. And this game does actually carry over your power-up state between loops, which is not something most Gradius games do. And you'll see what I mean here once the credits end. But yeah, I'll definitely try to get, in a future marathon, I'll try to get an actual legit 1cc of this game. But that'll just have to wait for another time. But I hope that it was still entertaining to watch nonetheless. And yeah, that's it for me. I'll throw it back over to you guys.
Alright, thank you so much again, Super Viper, and to everyone that participated in this year's Coin-Op Classic. Gotta give them my thanks. Alright, y'all, again, this was an interesting year, because even though this is the event that I do my best to helm every year, this one in particular was, for me, was very hard to bring together. There was a lot of like last minute stuff, and particularly on my end, and I'm just glad it was able to come together as well as it did. New changes in life have led to this kind of stuff being, unfortunately, kind of put on the shoulders of others, but I'm very happy to call RGL my team because